Hello guys, welcome to my ranking for the Wrong Turn franchise.
Everybody's a suspect!
Coming to get you, Bobber.
As most of you know, I done my reviews for all the Wrong Turn movies a few months ago, and I decided to hold off on doing a ranking for the Wrong Turn movies because there's a Wrong Turn 7 called Wrong Turn The Foundation. So I thought I would have left it for a little while until Foundation came out, but because of the whole coronavirus thing, I don't know if the Foundation is going to come out anytime soon. It's most likely going to be a video on demand movie as well, but there's still no news about when it's coming out. There's not even a trailer for it yet either, so I've decided I'm just going to do the ranking for the first 6 movies just now, and if the 7th movie eventually does come out, I'll add it into the ranking at some point, but today we're going to be looking at the first 6 movies. And at number 6, and no massive surprise, is Wrong Turn 6 Last Resort. Now, one of the major issues I had with this movie was the character development, especially with the cannibals. They didn't feel like the cannibals of the first movie. They didn't even feel like the cannibals of any of the other movies. They were so far from the original cannibals, it was unreal. And that takes me on to the story of the movie. The movie was also so far-fetched. The story of the movie was so far-fetched that it took us away from the original with all the cult aspect, them being told what to do. It just didn't feel right. If you mix that in with the cheesy characters, the cheesy character dialogue, everything was terrible. I had nothing good to say about this movie. And at number 5 is Wrong Turn 5 Bloodlines. Now I promise you guys, it's not going to go in the order of the date that they came out. It's not going to be 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's definitely not. It just so happens that number 6 is the worst and number 5 is the second worst. And I had similar issues with this one, not as much as the 6th movie, but it had the cheesy plot, cheesy character development, bad dialogue. Everything about the movie in that sense was really bad. One thing I really hated was it was confined mostly to one spot in the jail cell, and I didn't like that. If they utilised the characters better and we liked the characters, then yes, I would have accepted that. But the fact that most of the movie took place in this one spot where nothing happened, it was just so boring. Another similar issue I had with this one, as I did with part 6, was the cannibals were being told what to do, and that's not supposed to happen. That's not what we were led to believe when this first movie came out back in 2003, and going from that to this with them being told what to do, it just wasn't acceptable. And then number 4 is a controversial one. It's Wrong Turn 2 Dead End. Now I know a lot of fans of the franchise would consider this one the second best, and as far as I can see, a lot of people consider this one the best out of the whole franchise. I don't see what you guys see in this movie at all. I think this movie, I don't know how much the budget was, but this looked like the cheapest movie out of the whole entire franchise. Now, one thing I will give it is the acting. The acting was good, but that doesn't say much for the whole franchise. But the acting was a lot better than most of the other movies that came after it, if not all the other movies that came after it. But there's something about the technology aspect in horror movies that I don't like. When they use reality TV as the main focal point, the main storyline of a horror movie, when you watch that movie in a few years' time, it's dated fast, and that's exactly what happens with Wrong Turn 2. And I'm not saying that when you use technology in horror movies, it's automatically going to be bad in a couple of years' time. It's not always the case. But when you look at, for example, Halloween Resurrection, as bad as that movie was, one of the issues with that movie was the technology that they used, the reality TV, Dangertainment. It's the exact same as Wrong Turn 2. It's something that I didn't like about it. I felt also that there was too many cannibals in Wrong Turn 2. And I know you want to up the ante from what you've done in the first movie, but there was just too many of them. The movie also felt like an action movie more than a horror movie. And then number 3 is Wrong Turn 3 Left 4 Dead. Now, one thing I admire about the Wrong Turn franchise, most of the movies in the franchise have a storyline that's completely unique. Not unique in the horror world, but unique to the Wrong Turn franchise. It was completely different to the one that came before it. And that's what I liked about Left 4 Dead, was it was about a group of convicts that crashed in the middle of the woods and they're hunted by the cannibals. That was completely unique. The characters were okay. I got behind some of the characters, even the bad guys, but what I didn't like about it was the convicts and their backstories took centre stage more than the cannibals themselves. Now I know the cannibals aren't meant to be the main characters in the film, they're just hunting the main characters, but I felt like we hardly ever saw the cannibals in this film. There wasn't that many in it. I think there was only one or two as far as I remember. So I think that the cannibals took a back seat throughout most of the movie until the very end. But overall it was a decent Wrong Turn movie. And at number 2 is Wrong Turn 4 Bloody Beginnings. Now I'm going to admit it here, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I actually enjoyed this film. I heard it was terrible, and some people consider this one to be the worst in the franchise. So when I went into this one, I went in with completely low expectations, and that might be why I actually enjoyed it. Now, I'll go in and tell you about the negative quickly, is the fact that it was a prequel. There was no need for this movie to be a prequel. It didn't add anything to the story of this movie being a prequel. If they set it in modern day and set it after Wrong Turn 3, I wouldn't care. It wouldn't add anything, it wouldn't take anything away. So I was confused as to why they thought it was a good idea to make a prequel. But at the same time, I loved the setting in the snow, because we don't see the snow that often in Wrong Turn movies or even horror movies. So I did like the snow setting in the film. The characters were a little annoying, but that's to be expected in a Wrong Turn movie. I really liked the cannibals in this one. I think the cannibals were really scary. Something that I didn't see much of in the whole entire franchise. If I had to rank the scariness of the cannibals, this would be up there with one of the best and scariest in the franchise. Now, apart from some dodgy CGI, the practical effects are always good, and there was some really good kills in this movie. And at number 1, and no surprise, it's the original Wrong Turn from 2003. Now, the only reason most people know about the Wrong Turn franchise is because of the first movie. It's because the first movie was so good and so surprising that we wanted to see more, and whether it was good or not, we still came back to the franchise hoping that we're going to get a movie just as good as the first one. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but we still do have the original to look at and admire. It was everything that I ever wanted in a horror movie back in 2003. It was suspenseful, it was horrific. The movie kept me on the edge of my seat. Now, one thing I don't like about some horror movies is the fact that they're really short. They're just over 80 minutes or just under 90 minutes. Sometimes I don't like that, especially when there's a lot of boring dialogue in the film. That's not the case with Wrong Turn. Wrong Turn was fast paced from the beginning to the end, so we didn't get a lot of dialogue, and that's because there was a lot of action happening in the film, and that's what kept me on the edge of my seat. We also have to remember that back in 2003 we were inundated with a lot of slasher movies that were coming over from the late 90s, like Halloween H2O, all those types of movies, and they were coming to an end around about 2003, and that's when the suspenseful, more gritty horror movies were coming in, like Roadkill, for example, and Wrong Turn. And then when Wrong Turn came out, it was just a refreshing change for the horror franchise for me personally. It was a genuinely gritty, backwoods slasher horror movie, in the same vein and probably on par with movies like the original House of Eyes and Just Before Dawn. So that's my ranking of the entire Wrong Turn franchise, guys. Some controversial entries in there, but I'm sure you have something different. Some of you might have the same as me, from 6 to 1, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's your ranking of the Wrong Turn franchise? Leave your comments down below. As always, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.